For generations, the Roswell crash has existed in the shadow realm between myth and remembrance, shrouded in secrecy, spoken of in bars, researched by fanatics, covered up by authorities, and transmitted in whispers like an old wives' tale told around a fire. It has always been fragments of debris, fragments of testimony, silhouettes of men seen in heat haze, and most of all, a louder silence than anything that could ever be said to be true. What occurred during the desolation of New Mexico desert in July 1947 has never been permitted to rest. For the public, it has always been an unsolved mystery, a tale that kept getting rewritten, covered up, and explained away by weather balloons, Project Mogul, or Cold War secrecy. But at times history does not wash everything away. At times the past resides quietly in a corner, awaiting its time to re-emerge. And then, out of nowhere, something turned up, a picture locked away for years, bearing secrets no one ever thought to glimpse. It looked plain at first glance, merely another artifact of the time. But when specialists leaned in, the picture showed them something that halted them in their tracks. Not merely wreckage. Not merely a tale. A concealed presence, looking back through 75 years of quiet. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. It started with a box nobody could recall ever having. It was a nothing thing, scuffed cardboard, yellowed tape, a dry paper smell, and a hand label in fading ink that said, Summer 47. To Claire Ames, whom it accompanied out of her recently deceased grandfather's garage one sweltering afternoon, it was nothing more than dusty junk. In the envelope were ration books, stubs from trains, and a yellowed copy of the Roswell Daily Record, folded up to the July 8 headline that had once shocked the world, RAAF captures flying disc in Roswell region. Amidst these relics rested a manila envelope sealed with crumbling red wax. She nearly put it aside, until she saw the return line typed weakly across the corner, RAAF, PIO. Roswell Army Airfield. Her grandfather had always brushed away inquiries about 1947. I stocked shelves, he'd say with a derisive chuckle. Nothing worth telling. But the envelope implied otherwise. With a butter knife, Claire cut through the brittle wax and extracted a single photographic print, heavier than the usual snapshot, its edges deckled, its surface subtly iridescent in the light of the lamp. It resembled, at first glance, a period field photograph, men stooping in the New Mexico sunlight, low scrub crawling away into the distance, pieces scattered on the desert floor. But when she held it up to the light, something caused her throat to constrict. The photo was startlingly clear enough to see sweat at a soldier's temple, the texture of canvas straps, even dust suspended in mid-air. This was no $2 newsprint halftone or staged office picture. This was a first-generation field print. And faintly impressed on the reverse, barely legible after all these years, was the date, July 1947. The shock intensified as Claire compared it to the official Roswell pictures that had circulated for decades. Those pictures had been posed indoors, on an office floor in Fort Worth, of Jesse Marcel holding up shreds of balloon foil. This was different. It presented the desert itself, debris scattered across sand and yucca, soldiers crouched low as if they were picking up pieces. There were strips of metallic stuff spread like petals, lattice rods that did not look like balsa wood, and a curled piece of paper glowing in the sun with a radiance no paper ever should. Worst of all was the makeup, the long shadow of the tripod in the background, implying a base photographer, not a reporter, had snapped the photo before the story got rewritten. Claire did something her grandfather never did. She contacted a historian. In a matter of days, the print was placed on a light table at a university conservation center. Experts studied it gingerly. The paper had the consistency of post-war fiber papers common in late 1940s. The emulsion was professional rather than drugstore quality and contained pressure marks from a contact frame, the type made in field darkrooms or base labs. No forgery marks, no collage lines, no inkjet, no post-tampering. All hinted at authenticity. Then came magnification. At 20x zoom, the pieces on the ground made themselves known, metallic strips with very light grid embossing, curled but not ruptured edges, one ripple trapped mid-return as if the material were elastic, wanting to rebound into form. Weather balloons rupture, the technicians explained. They do not curl. The rods, ostensibly balsa, had a fibrous sheen that was not wood. One piece even had small geometric symbols along its edge, marks not English letters, not numerals, but purposeful shapes recurring in cadence. The room fell silent. Provenance tightened the noose further. Underneath the photo was a crumbly pink carbon slip, a requisition for film supplies dated only 3 days after the initial press announcement. Desert grit and mica specks stuck to the envelope dust, just the sort to be found near New Mexico ranges. And along the edge of the print, barely visible now, worn away by time, was a pencil scribble, field set, keep for ref. It was not an office dry-run photograph, posed for the press. It was field reporting, to be kept in-house, never published. But the most chilling secret wasn't in the wreckage. It was in the figure caught standing in the background. From a quick glance, the figure appeared to be yet another airman, half concealed between two men squatting on the ground. But under enlargement, its uniqueness became impossible to hide. The others had insignia and stripes on their suits, this one had a simple dark tunic with no rank, no seam, no unit number. The others wore laced boots, this one's footwear looked molded, seamless. Its hands dangled awkwardly, fingers elongated beyond normal proportion. And then there was the face. In shadow at first, but under enhanced light, proportions emerged that didn't fit human norms, a head too large, eyes too wide and tilted, catching sunlight like glossy pools. No nose ridge. Only a faint mouth line. Skeptics countered that it could be motion blur or distortion, but comparisons failed. Shoulder width, head-to-body ratio, limb proportions, none fit human skeletons. The lab grew silent. It was as if one of the little bodies, recounted for decades in Roswell testimony, oversized head, big black eyes, had been recorded not in memory, but in emulsion. The debris itself spoke an equally ominous message. The narrow strips of metal acted like memory metal explained by Major Marcel, paper-light, undentable, bending back into shape. The rods were too engineered to be balsa, with cross-sections and no grain, surfaces too slick. And the geometric inscriptions, careful, repeated, intentional, resembled what Marcel's son had once referred to as hieroglyphics. Skeptics attempted to counter toy kite pieces, but the evidence diminished under each microscope. This was not toy wreckage. It was designed. Then came the find that locked the room in quiet. Along the margin of the print, almost obliterated in smudge and time, handwriting appeared, saucer debris, RAAF 1947. The graphite had become embedded in the paper fibers while the print was new, indicating contemporaneous annotation. The wording echoed the 1 July 1947 terminology of flying discs and saucers, before the weather balloon story was imposed. Handwriting analysis revealed military clerical style prevalent in those days, with slashed sevens similar to those on Roswell memos. Whoever wrote this had been there, within the chain of documentation. For Claire, it was a discovery, but also a confirmation of something she'd heard as a child. Her grandfather had once cautioned, if you ever find the picture, don't keep it. Burn it. She had assumed it craziness on the part of an old man. Now she knew it was fear. His letters, hidden behind discharge papers, admitted as much, the picture is real. They instructed us to burn all copies. I kept one. That was my error. He lived in terror that discovery would have repercussions. This isn't ours to show, one note said. They'll come looking if it surfaces. Who they were, he never told her. Military police. Government agents. Something else. Family rumor recalled visits during the 1990s, 2 men in suits, general questions about Thomas's military service. He always hushed questions, responding only, your father did something very brave once. Don't talk about it. His silence continued until his death. Only then did the envelope lie in storage, awaiting Claire to discover it. And then the eyes. Magnification showed them reflections within, tall vertical sparkles, not round like the desert sun, but as if light reflected from a curved, shiny surface unlike human eyes. A cryptographer examining debris symbols grumbled that the reflections looked like they came from twin sources of light not in the environment, as if the eyes themselves were lenses. The sinister implication: what if the creature was taping, even as soldiers surrounded it? One after another, the evidence mounted. Disappearing records for 1947. Witness testimony discounted for decades. A press release touting a flying disc retracted in a day. Staged photos substituted for field photos. And now, a first-generation print with the image of debris that aligned with testimony, a shape that broke human proportions, and a hand-scrawled note that refused to contradict the cover story: Saucer Debris, RAAF 1947. For 75 years, the Roswell UFO incident teetered on the brink of belief. Was it a Cold War experiment, a weather balloon, or something else entirely? The photo alters the equation. It is not affidavit or rumor, but a picture snapped in time, holding within it secrets that someone dared risk everything to maintain. And maybe that was why Thomas Ames told his family to burn it. Because he understood that the truth of Roswell wasn't just about debris. It was about presence. About eyes that weren't human. About a history the world was never meant to know. Now the photograph is in the light, 75 years after silence. A presence that should not be. Debris that science cannot readily account for. And a warning designed to bury the truth forever. The question that still lingers is not whether Roswell occurred, but if this photograph, this single frame, was intended to be a breadcrumb, left behind for us by someone who wished the truth to outlast the cover-up. And if so, what do we do with it now?